Gavin Newsom, who is very likely to be a presidential contender in 2028. If it's him versus JD, I'm canvassing for JD. I'm only half joking. I'm like 30% joking. Set that. This is all he does with his podcast, by the way, you know? If he wants to reach out to people he disagrees with, it's always people on the right. Has he had, I'm genuinely asking, I'm not asking facetiously, I want you to fill in gaps in my knowledge if I am unaware. Has he had any, like, real leftist influencers on? Like, anyone who's really pushed him from the left? Nope. Okay, yeah. He's got room for Ben Shapiro, he's got room for Charlie Kirk, he's got room for Steve Bannon, but none of that. Only getting pushed from the right. Look, I'll be honest, the only thing that I've seen from this podcast episode, God, there's so much here, is this one clip that everyone's getting mad about. And by everyone, I'm including myself. Just show the clip, The Hill. Show the clip.
Commentator Ben Shapiro.
Show the clip.
Take a look.
Your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I just have to ask you about that. Yeah. That sort of thing makes our politics worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. Yeah. I mean, our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists.
Yeah.
A tragic situation is not state-sponsored terrorism.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Cool. That's it. We don't need to watch the Hill video. Just that clip. Yeah. So all that credit that you've given Governor Newsom for the epic-based red pill dark woke posting that he's been doing from his press account, by which I mean that he got an intern to do from his press account, all of it's fake. If pressed on it by a fascist, he'll just go like, yeah, that was too far, sorry. I actually don't think it's state-sponsored terrorism for the president to directly send legions of untrained neo-Nazis to harass black and brown people for no legal reason, you know? I hope this tanks his candidacy. Well, thankfully, his credibility got tanked quite a bit when he had Charlie Kirk and Bannon on and agreed with them on, like, Republican trans rights positions. Who is this supposed to appeal to? Corporate donors. Even if you're a Newsom fan, what does this do for you? Corporate donors. Corporate donors, corporate donors, corporate donors. Gavin Newsom's position has always been like he wants to run as the blue MAGA guy. His position is like, I'm not like those other Democrats who are woke and ineffectual. And my criticisms of the Republicans are largely like procedural, right? Like my issue, that like, you've taken it too far. I'm the middle road, you know? He's a big third way guy. He's a huge piece of shit. He really is. He really, 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 really is. This is 2 hours long. Fuck it.
Either you uphold the principle or you don't uphold the principle. If you don't uphold the principle, I'm going to call you out for not upholding the principle. On his epitaph, it will read.
He's also said he's got to strike down the billionaire tax that Ro Khanna wants to introduce. Yes, he has, yeah.
45th and 47th presidents of the United States, he said a lot of shit.
Sanctuary jurisdictions have lower crime rates. You move to a state that has higher insurance rate, higher car insurance, not just home insurance, has higher...
I'm going to skip a lot of this bullshit, okay?
Governors and localities working with ICE. California is a sanctuary state, which makes it much more difficult for local law enforcement to hand over information to ICE about deportation status. What's the purpose of that? Wouldn't best policy, you're pragmatic, you talk about your pragmatism all the time. Wouldn't best policy be to cooperate with ICE in the vast majority of cases?
No. So this is just factual. This is not ideological. If you have a bunch of undocumented immigrants in your state, and you make it clear to them that if they interact with the police in any way, their status on their undocumented status will be forwarded to ICE. They will not interact with the police. Murders, rapes, kidnapping, embezzlement, whatever else, if it's done within the undocumented community, it will stay there and never make its way to the police as long as they know that they're guaranteed to get deported if they go to you. By indicating that your police will not work with ICE, what you're essentially saying is, look, okay, let that aside, just whatever your issue is there, you know, don't worry about it, just come to us, interact with the law, like interact with civil society.
Instead of ICE going to, as you say, hospitals and churches to pick people up, they'd be going to jailhouses to pick people up.
That's exactly what they do in California. And we have over 10,000 that I've cooperated with since I've been governor of California. We work very directly with ICE as it relates to CDCR, our state prison. California has cooperated with more ICE transfers probably than any other state in the country. And I vetoed multiple pieces of legislation that have come from my legislature to stop the ability for the state of California to do that. So when it comes to the issues of violent criminals, when it comes to felons, people that are being released from the largest state system in the United States of America, California cooperates with ICE.
Okay, but
Phenomenal stuff. Just right off the bat concession. He could have said what I just said, by the way. Like, that would have been a direct answer to what Ben Shapiro said. Instead, he chose a less correct answer that concedes to their position.
why is it then? What makes it a sanctuary state?
Well, the broader sanctuary policies that are established, and we had a policy that was established under Governor Brown, SB 54. You have city sanctuary policies that go back quite literally to the time Ronald Reagan was governor, and it relates to some of the issues in Central America, sort of the origin story.
It seems like he doesn't even know why sanctuary cities or states are a thing. Like, he doesn't even seem to understand why they're valuable.
But the bottom line is relates to those policies, this notion that federal law should be enforced by federal law enforcement agencies, that we should not consign local law enforcement to federal responsibilities and prioritization.
Right, but shouldn't the state step in with localities and tell localities that they ought to cooperate better with ICE, thus to facilitate?
Well, I have sort of Rudy Giuliani's point of view, who made the point.
This is like, he has done this so many times, but stuff like this just flashes through my head every time somebody in chat came up to me and was like, "What the fuck? You're not going to vote for Gavin Newsom in 2028?" Stuff like this just running through my head every goddamn time. You'd think he would have stopped with this because his popularity tanked after his podcast episodes with Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, but nope, evidently not.
As an advocate for sanctuary policy when he was mayor of New York, he said it keeps people safer, healthier, and more educated. Safer in the context that it allows community members to be more likely to participate as witnesses of crime or victims of crime in going after the perpetrators, more likely to get an immunization shot if they're not worried about the nurse turning them over to ICE, more likely to go to school and get educated if they're not worried about the school crossing guard crossing them and ultimately turning them over to ICE. So it's the tool of pragmatism because of the complete abject failure of the federal government. A sanctuary policy is unnecessary if we had comprehensive immigration reform and we had a federal response that was adequate to the task. But in the absence of that, it's grown from the 70s and 80s and 90s, 2000s. And obviously I got here as governor and we had
If he isn't dead on arrival as a candidate, then we're boned. It is the responsibility of people like AOC to point this out. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like her, you know? You're like, attacking Republicans is great and all. We're not going to do shit. We're not going to be able to do shit unless we we cull the ranks of the party of people like this, you know? Seriously, like, how could you possibly expect us to be able to move the country forward if people like this and Kamala Harris get pitched as like the antidotes to a post-Trump America? You need to be active in pushing this out of the party. If you have no standards for what it means to be a Democrat and you allow stuff like this to rise to the top, do you actually care?
Established framework before I got here.
But it is true that sanctuary policy obviously has had a massive impact as a driver of tremendous number of illegal immigrants in the state of California.
I don't know.
There are a tremendous number of illegal immigrants in the state of Texas, too. Might have something to do with the fact that California is a border state that has a massive population and a thriving economy.
But that, I mean, you see in a lot of states that don't have sanctuary policies, huge increase in immigration, illegal immigration, massive increases, even far greater than the state of California. Just look as an example. But in
terms of the cost structure, I mean, you recently, for example, had to freeze the enrollment of undocumented immigrants in state health systems to save money, right? I mean, these are major burdens. No,
that's a separate issue. There are 12 states that provide health care for undocs, and we believe in universal health care regardless of pre-existing conditions.
My only point is that the cost structure is extraordinarily burdensome.
But I don't think it's in unpacking it. I don't think it's the sanctuary policies that are driving that. And I'll give you a proof point. Florida doesn't have sanctuary policy. Huge increase in undocumented community. Huge increase in Texas. It's not a driver, their sanctuary policies. They don't have sanctuary policies in those states. The state of California's policies, I don't think in that respect, have invited people into our state. And I use those as, I think, proof points of that. And that's a different. So the notion of how do you deal with people that are here 10, 15 years? How do you deal with mixed status families in the state? And how do you provide for health care as opposed to emergency care and stabilize population?
Also, just in terms of energy, like when he has something to say that's not entirely wrong, there's no moral emphasis. right? There's no prescriptive language. There's no, this is right and your way is wrong. Even when talking about trans rights with people who want to kill trans people, right? Like Charlie Kirk or whatever, just openly like trans genocide types, you know? He talked about it like it's all some, morally neutral puzzle to be worked through. I concede to you that point. Well, if you consider this, there's no moral emphasis. He doesn't give a fuck about anything, dude. This fucking sociopath does not give a shit. All of this is just a way of worming his way through like popular opinion and the path of least resistance to get to the presidency. He has no moral qualms about any position he could take or might take. It's really just a matter of how well it serves him.
Regulations and community health. It's a different approach. It's one that we've been very transparent about. It's one that's hardly unique because in every state, they provide compensated care for undocs at the emergency room. Many states provide it for children, many for seniors. California provides it across the board.
I mean, the biggest problem, though, as somebody who left the state, is that the cost structure in the state has become so burdensome, not just because of illegal immigration, but generally. And so the idea that policy has no impact as a magnet for particular human behavior or alienating people from a state, that's clearly untrue.
Yeah,
and when you look at the homeless population, for example, friendlier policies toward providing services in Santa Monica led
Separate
to...
point, though. But now you're getting a homeless policy, not immigration policy.
No, but
if
I want to stick with immigration policy.
No,
if you make it easier for illegal immigrants,
but let's stick with immigration
not to
policy.
avoid ICE, then presumably.
No, look, I appreciate this. So we've established an important. I appreciate the question because I'm glad we've established that we do cooperate with ICE in California. In particular, this governor, who's, as I said, on multiple occasions vetoed efforts to stop me from that coordination for dangerous criminals, and we've done that over 10,000 folks.
So it'd be wrong for. So when AOC said this week that ICE should be abolished,
Solving that. Oh, please. And here I was about to skip this.
you disagree.
Oh, I disagree when I think a candidate for president by the name of Harris said that in the last campaign. I came out, I remember being on Chris Hayes hours later saying, I think that's a mistake. So absolutely.
Phenomenal. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for implicating Kamala Harris as well.
Number two, as
Being
little less than 150,000. You're right, about 111, 108,000.
And this isn't rip on you. I mean, because
it's
because
been a major national issue, as you know, and the macroeconomics of this with interest rate environment, sort of post-COVID environment, made this housing crisis across the country.
Although to be fair, the housing crisis in California is particularly bad. I mean, there are places like Phoenix or Austin or there's
Why do people think this guy was some kind of great anti-Republican warrior anyway? Genuinely, mass psychosis. The only thing Governor Newsom has ever done to appear like a genuine force against Republicans is having a press office Twitter account that's like a little bit more mean or whatever. But for years now, there have been people who have been acting like Governor Newsom is some kind of Republican-hating, dark woke Leviathan. Like, he might not be that progressive, but oh, does he hate Republicans? Dude, he fucking loves Republicans. Oh, he always has. He has never not been like this. He's been like this his whole career. Where did this delusion come from?
I said yesterday or last week in the state of states, the original sin, our inability to get out of our own way and all the regulatory thickets.
Right. So
we blew through those in the last couple of years. 61 housing reform bills we just passed, and Ezra was highlighting that. Interesting.
Yes.
New York
receive attention for saying things that are complete horseshit.
And I appreciate that, but should I give attention to Donald Trump when I sat there in the Oval Office for 90 minutes and he tells me to turn around and there's a picture on the wall or painting on the wall of FDR, and I look at him and I smile and he goes, I said, oh, here's the third term. He goes, what about 4 terms? Should I take him seriously?
Okay, so
should I take him literally?
I will say,
I don't know. I'm just a question.
I know, and my general
That's
answer,
the president.
And my general answer to this is, if we've watched Donald Trump for 10 years, and we're still doing the thing where we all take him explicitly literally, I think that so
Maduro
did. So people
or has.
Well, it turns out Maduro should have. But you know, one of the things that I remember I would get this critique about President Trump a lot is President Trump, who, as I've said multiple times, on his epitaph, it will read 45th and 47th president of the United States. He said a lot of shit. You know, like the thing
I'm
so fucking stupid, so tired, so old hack. I do want to hear them talk about Candace Owens, though. Maybe they can, I don't know, bond over their shared love of Israel. Do you think Pritzker is a good potential option for 2026? What do you mean 2026? You mean 2028? Pritzker has not been impressing me lately. I don't think he has the energy.
Let me go back to some of the disagreements, and I don't want to paint too much and color this in because as a Democrat, it's in my interest to do so. But you got a lot of attention for going recently to
Also,
America
is Ben
Fest.
trying to play the normie Republican for some reason? Ben is the normie Republican now. Like he might have been more aggressive 5 years ago, but now he's probably to the fucking left of the median Republican.
Turning Point USA, you made a terrible decision of being the first speaker. That's just me saying editorially. What the heck were you thinking?
That is not my decision, right? They invited me. They gave me a slot. That's
yeah, just your luck, because then every speaker can come on and
that's
and
okay.
attack.
I got to say what I wanted to say, and then
so paint
I said
the picture.
pretty much,
What did you say?
Sure.
So people tuning in don't know what the hell we're talking about. You went in and a pretty somber time. Charlie's widow was there. You had a lot of, the sort of branded celebrities in the right, and Candace Owens was
Really
there.
somber.
Candace was not there, to be fair.
But became part of the conversation.
She definitely was part of the conversation.
And Bannon and Megyn Kelly, others, so many
Tucker.
others. Certainly Tucker Carlson. So give us a sense. What did you say, and why did you say it? And why did you choose that moment to say it?
So the reason that I chose the moment to say it is that Candace Owens, who has some issues of her own, she has been saying since Charlie's death that there was effectively a conspiracy to kill him. She has implicated pretty much everybody, ranging from, believe it or not, French intelligence to the Israelis to various friends and family members, possibly, of Charlie in his murder.
Yeah.
And there have been an enormous number of people in the influencer space on the right who have gone along with this, who have massaged it, pretended not to notice it, tried to defend her, tried to pretend that it was an aspect of, that questioning her was an aspect of free speech, which, of course, was a violation of free speech, rather, which, of course, it isn't. Criticism is not a violation of free speech. It's a form of free speech.
Thank you.
And so I got up on stage and I basically gave a speech saying our responsibility as people with influence in the public space, we have some responsibilities, and those responsibilities include truth above all.
Yeah.
We ought to be clear about what we believe. We should not hide the ball. We should not allow, quote unquote, friendship to trump what is true. Just because you're friends with someone does not alleviate the responsibility for you to say when they're doing something that is wrong or immoral. We should not engage in audience capture. Just because our audience wants us to say a thing doesn't mean that we ought to say it. And we ought to.
I think it's interesting that he's leaning off the anti-Semite, like Candace Owens is a neo-Nazi angle,
ensure that we are held responsible for the things that we say, and also the people that we have on and how we question those people. So, of course, anybody has the right to have anybody on their show who they want, and then they should treat those people how they want to treat those people. I mean, if I were to have on somebody who's, in a deeply adversarial position, I think what's great about this conversation is you can see how adversarial we are with regard to some of our positions, but at the same time still have the discussion. Yeah. If you are going to have on, for example, as Tucker Carlson did, Nick Fuentes, who is a self-stated Nazi apologist, and then you're going to treat him with kid gloves, then you ought to be held responsible for that in the court of public opinion. And if we as influencers do not do that job, if we lie to you, if we fib to you, if we make predictions which we are then not held responsible for, if we hide behind, quote unquote, just asking questions, this is one of my bugaboos. I hate it. You hear this a lot in the influencer space, mostly on the right, but some on the left as well. This sort of, I'm not putting out a theory. I'm just asking questions. Well, there's a difference between seeking answers and just asking questions.
I think it's interesting that he doesn't like the just asking questions thing because it comes from neo-Nazis who are trying to gesture at the JQ, but he's totally okay with Trump's variation of this, which is you say a million things that are insane and illegal, and you're like, oh, he's just joking. But then some of them turn out to be true, and you only know that in retrospect. Like he even admitted that with Maduro. Maybe Maduro should have taken him seriously, It's interesting. They're both fundamentally the same rhetorical tactic, right? Like you're disingenuously playing the field by putting a bunch of shit out there, seeing what lands, and then like honing in on it. But he's okay with it when Trump does it, not okay with it when Nazis do it.
Seeking answers. That's what questions are for. It's to get better information, more clarification. I should have a better idea after the question of the answer than I did before. Just asking questions is usually a guise for willful ignorance and for positing a theory without having to carry the responsibility for positing that theory. So
who's this podcast for? I really think that Gavin Newsom's plan here is that he's going to watch the Trump movement, the MAGA movement, implode because Trump and everyone around him are insanely incompetent, and he wants to step in as the blue MAGA guy who's like, listen, the Democrats are crazy, but you guys fucked this up. Watch me do this right. You know, that's why he's talking to people like Ben Shapiro. He's here to rescue the Republican Party from its worst excesses, essentially. Wonder how the average liberal voter views Newsom. Well, his polling's been trending downward over time. You still have stuff like this, though. Aaron Rupar. Gavin Newsom is a presidential frontrunner in part because he not only talked the talk about fighting Trump, but came up with and executed a plan to actually do it. No, he didn't. He hasn't done anything. Other Democrats should take note. Words and stern letters aren't sufficient. I mean, it's whether these people are like paid to do this or it's organic like hysteria. I have no idea. There was the redistricting in California. That's it. Is that the one thing for which he's being given credit?
I say, I'm just asking questions about whether you have peculiar sexual proclivities. I don't have any evidence. I'm just asking the question. And then you say, well, where is that even coming from? Listen, I'm just asking questions. I'm not asking questions. I'm obviously attempting to impute something to you. This was what this speech was about. I named names in it. I mentioned Tucker Carlson. I mentioned Megyn Kelly, who had sort of gone out of her way to massage Candace Owens in her pursuit of bizarre conspiracy theories about Erica and Charlie's murder. I mentioned Steve.
Don't attribute a conspiracy what could be more easily attributed to stupidity. That's true, but when it comes to like inscrutable, irrational political opinions that keep pushing people together in ways that are like monetarily convenient, I think that Occam's razor does lend itself towards the conspiratorial answer. Like when Trump says something that everyone knows is untrue, and then the next day every Republican politician and podcaster is talking about how it's totally true and it's always been true, I really don't think we should be like, well, I think they all just fell for it. Like they all know they're lying. It's just their job to do so. The question is like, how much of that is there on the left? And I think the answer is that like whenever the real edge case subjects come up, like say Bernie Sanders 2016 Medicare for all, or Israel, genocide in Gaza, you see, oh, there actually is like a lot of money in the Democratic Party that they're willing to throw around to silence the opposition. It just doesn't come up quite as often.
Because I think Steve has been doing many of the same things. And so that was the speech at AmFest.
And that you felt it was necessary to name names as opposed to imply. You just felt it was important to be clear.
Yes, because I think that people should know exactly who they're listening to, particularly since they're going to hear from some of those people at the same event. And so I thought that people should, be forewarned about the people they're going to hear about. Then they can make their own decisions and determine whether my assessment of those personalities is accurate or inaccurate.
And the reaction was exactly as you anticipated?
I think that the reaction in the room was, I think, overwhelming because a lot of people were very upset that people had been saying this about Charlie's murder, which again was carried out by all available evidence by a person motivated by hatred of Charlie's position on transgender issues in particular. No
evidence of this whatsoever, but let's see how Gavin Newsom expertly combats this talking point.
All the evidence points to Tyler Robinson as being the person who shot Charlie Kirk. And so I think that a lot of people in the audience were deeply offended and upset, correctly so, at the kind of specious conspiracy theories that have been promoted by this group of folks. The sort of blowback that came afterward was really interesting. There were a lot of people who obviously were very upset, and many of the people who I'd named, I'm not surprised, came back and fired back. I will say that I don't think any of them actually argued with the point that I was making. They seemed to make collateral attacks, imputing intent to me, suggesting that my speech had something to do with Israel, which is funny since I didn't mention Israel one time in the entire speech. And I found that sort of bizarre. And then obviously you've seen, sort of the influencer wars going on. But the whole point that I was making is here's a principle.
No pushback at all on the idea that Charlie Kirk was murdered for being anti-trans.
You uphold the principle or you don't uphold the principle. If you don't uphold the principle, I'm going to call you out for not upholding the principle. And it really is quite simple. It's not about friendship. It's not about whether we go fishing together. None of that has anything to do with the principle that's at stake. Because if we want to have an honest discussion with one another, then we actually should be honest about the principles that we hold. And if we disagree, we disagree. But clarity before agreement, as my friend Dennis Prager says.
Were you close with Charlie?
I don't want to pretend that we were best friends or anything. Right. One of the things I said in the speech is I think that it's pretty rare, actually, in politics for people who say that they're friends in politics. These are usually not people you're going and hanging out with on the weekends. It's not real. Okay. Whenever you hear politicians, we're best friends. It's such bullshit. I'm sorry. It's such bullshit. There may be a couple of exceptions. Yeah. They're rare. Okay. The reality is that they are business colleagues and associates in the same way that most people have business colleagues and associates that they see at the office. We see each other more rarely than you probably see your business colleagues or associates at the office.
You respected how he organized in the campus level. I mean, again,
Charlie
all
was,
the echoes of things you were doing.
listen,
Just
Charlie,
like a regular guy, you know? Just a regular guy. Just a normal, everyday fascist propagandist, you know, just a going. Oh, were you friends with him? Wow, haha, did you go to the movies together? Oh, he was assassinated for his belief that white people deserve a homeland to themselves. Oh, okay, yeah, haha.
was incredibly gifted as an organizer.
Yeah.
I won't say that we agreed on everything politically, because clearly we didn't. But I think that, you know, Charlie as a person who was willing to go into fraught spaces, obviously, and he was killed doing this, and to speak his principles to people who disagreed, and do so in what I think overwhelmingly was sort of an honest and decent fashion. I think that was a very good thing.
What Tucker Carlson and you history do you?
I mean, I'm not sure that we have a history so much as Tucker seems to object to my politics, and I object to his. I think Tucker tries to personalize this. I think Megyn has tried to personalize this. I don't believe in personalizing these things. I was asked by somebody, you know, would Tucker and I ever be friends? I said, I'd go fishing with Tucker. I mean, I don't care. I mean, that doesn't matter to me. The question is his principles and the things that he says. I think that Tucker, I gave a speech right before TPUSA at Heritage Foundation where I pointed out.
What's the difference in their politics? Guys, Charlie was like a Nazi. Charlie ideologically was not dissimilar to Nick Fuentes. Like they had massive gulfs in their politics. Like the gulf was probably in large part because Ben Shapiro was aware of the fact that anti-Semitism was becoming more and more of a mainstream talking point within the right. And the schism opened up between him and like every other, like eventually Walsh is going to leave the Daily Wire. The same thing's going to keep happening over and over and over again. There's not really a way to appeal to the new right without being a Nazi.
That Tucker is not an advocate for conservatism in any way that I can identify conservatism. He's not in favor of a more limited government of checks and balances. He's come out in favor of feudalism fairly recently. He's not in favor of, you know, traditional institutions. He seems to think that they have lost their way. He's in favor of what appears to me a sort of horseshoe theory, Noam Chomsky foreign policy, where America is always the bad actor in the the and so I think
I read my Chomsky back in the day.
Yeah, I
you'd not be surprised.
And I think
Jesus Christ, I think I clicked on here at 54 minutes in. We're at 1 hour and 3 minutes now. Gavin Newsom has not said a single disagreeable thing in this entire time. Not once. Just asking questions and laughing along. It's incredible.
But on Trump generally, I'm curious. Just
on foreign policy, which you put it to the side, I think Trump has been the greatest foreign policy president in my lifetime. I don't think it's close. I think he's been spectacular on foreign policy, and that's with many of my critiques with regard to, for example, Ukraine, where I'm significantly more hawkish than the administration has been.
And did you feel that way in his first term?
Yes.
I felt the same way too.
Yes, I was very much an advocate of his foreign policy. I thought that in terms of his foreign policy, he is, as he said before, he has not got us into any major wars, which is a good thing.
We've used the military 6-7 significant times.
He has used the military in, I think, targeted and pinpointed ways that do not reinforce the Iraq War syndrome that we need to put hundreds of thousands of troops on the ground. I think the president has a very good feel for the thing about foreign policy is it kind of works like the New York real estate market. It actually is a sort of zero-sum win or lose game, and President Trump actually is quite good at those.
Holy shit, that's so fucking incorrect. Oh my god, what an insanely fucking stupid thing to say. Holy shit. Yeah, man, I'm not a conservative the way Tucker Carlson is. He's like pro-feudalism or something. Anyway, my view of foreign policy is literally mercantile. What the fuck are you talking about?
I think that on domestic economics, the president tends to bring a zero-sum approach sometimes to his economic issues that I don't agree with, because I think that you can expand the pie for everybody. But I don't think the same thing holds true generally in foreign policy, where when it comes to geopolitics, there's a winner and there's a loser. And it's all about relative power.
It's insanely psychotically stupid thing to say. It's so fucking funny how Ben Shapiro LARPs as this like economically literate guy who defends institutions and just wants limited government or whatever. But he has a not even like a 19th century, like an 18th or earlier century view on foreign policy. The idea that foreign policy or like international trade is a zero-sum game is delusional and not it's like a mental illness. I have no idea what has to be wrong in your brain to think that.
power dynamics. And the president seems to get that on a very gut level, which is why in the Middle East, I think he did the right thing with Gaza. I think he's done the right thing with the Iran strike on Fordo nuclear facility. I think he did the right thing in extraditing Nicolas Maduro. I think those are all good things. I think that he has found ways to continue the funding of Ukraine via this sort of jerry-rigged NATO buying weapons and funding. I think that he has gotten a bunch of countries in Europe to increase their defense spending, which is something that even Mark Rutte over at NATO has said is generally a good thing.
No disagreement from
I think all of these
I don't
things
argue
are
with
good
that. I mean, we can, boy, and if people are looking for us to unpack that, we can spend hours and hours on every single one of these specific examples. Let me ask you, and just before we get off the foreign policy, I am curious. Greenland, come on.
No disagreement with anything that he just said. Just literally, just like a psychotic screed on American Pax Americana. We will step over the world. It's fight or flight. We have no choice but to do this. And Gavin Newsom just lets it roll.
I don't understand why we are attempting to make Greenland our 51st state. It seems to me we already have defense agreements in
well
place.
Established since 1951. We were the ones that pulled back. We can re-enter any day of the week.
Listen, I think that
that's the problem with us invading Greenland. It's that we already have military bases and defense treaties there. We don't need to invade Greenland because we already have Greenland. There's no moral reason we can't invade Greenland. If we didn't have those defense treaties, then sure we can invade Greenland.
Greenland. I think that despite the desire to rename it Trumpland, I think that
I haven't even heard that.
No, but
just
no,
trying to deal with the Donnie doctrine or whatever it is.
I think that's silly. I think that the attempt to strengthen our bases in Greenland would be a good thing. But I think that's a different thing.
She can do tomorrow, which they've already agreed to.
Agree.
And the whole thing seems folly, but it is.
Now invading Canada, that's it.
Okay, but I want to just, because you write about it in Lions and Scavengers, you talk about this notion of free enterprise, you talk about markets. What do you make of Trump's interventionist attitudes, not just overseas, but as it relates to corporations and companies, so many disproportionately based out here, including MP Materials, which is...
I don't think the federal government should be taking stakes in private companies. I don't believe in what has been called crony capitalism or state capitalism. Really, it's just corporatism. I'm not a fan of the idea that the government ought to, be involved in command and control economics with regard to private companies. I've opposed that pretty much every step of the way.
Command and control economic. What the fuck does that mean?
I think it's a mistake. I think that the market has a magical ability to make things better and cheaper over time if left to its own devices.
And that includes, by the way, not interfering in the independence of the Fed.
Yes.
So
yes. Listen, I'm an Austrian School of Economics guy. I think that there's a good case to be made that the Fed really should not have control over inflation rates in the first place. I think the target inflation rate should be 0, not 2. And I think that we should allow interest rates generally to free float because I think that, sometimes one of the great...
Watch him not push back on this at all. Watch Gavin Newsom not even on invocation of Austrian School of Economics, which is not real. The target interest rate should be 0%. Not even on this will he say anything.
Problems with the American economy is artificial bubbles that are created by loose monetary policy. I think that's what helped lead to the Great Recession. I think it's what also led to the inflationary spiral under Joe Biden.
What do you make of Donald Trump? And forgive me, this is, we're zigging and zagging around a little bit, but I still can't get over the fact that he sat down and had dinner with Nick Fuentes.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
So I think that was a bad thing to do, obviously. I think that Nick Fuentes is a scumbag. I think that the president has, an unfortunate tendency to make nice with people who want to make nice with him. He did come out this week, by the way, and in the New York Times said the Republican Party wants nothing to do with people like Nick Fuentes, doesn't want to do with anti-Semites. I'll continue to be critical of Republicans who flirt with this sort of stuff. I wish that the Democratic Party were as critical of sitting Congress members who not only flirt with this sort of stuff, but overtly traffic in this sort of stuff. I'll ask you about Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani, literally in the campaign, he was asked on Fox News about Hamas, and he refused to denounce it as a terrorist group.
They are a terrorist group, and they should have been denounced. I was there, as you know, a few weeks after.
Oh, how interesting. We've been watching for 30 minutes. He has not made a single statement. He's just been asking questions and agreeing with stuff that Ben Shapiro says. He finally Finally, after hearing about Ben's support for the Austrian School of Economics, after hearing that there shouldn't be a Fed and the target interest rate should be 0%, after hearing that international trade is a zero-sum game, finally, we have found a subject that Gavin AIPAC, that's so interesting, AIPAC, I've never even heard anyone bring up AIPAC before. How interesting. No one's ever in the history of the universe ever said AIPAC to me before. Newsom has an opinion on, and it's whether or not Hamas is terrorists. How fascinating. How interesting.
October 7th, met with Bibi. Not a big fan of Bibi. This is where we have fundamental
That's fine,
disagreements. Quite the contrary, in fact.
But staying on domestic politics for a second,
yeah.
it seems to have become a sort of de rigueur requirement for Democrats who are running for office to now suggest, for example, Scott Wiener just did this, he's running for Congress, that Israel committed a genocide in Gaza. That is, forget about anti-Semitism and discussions of it, because I think that those have become really loose and people don't have a consistent definition of anti-Semitism. Let's just talk about what's true.
That's true.
Let's
I
talk
think
about
it's
what's
true about the definition. I mean, we, as you know, have been struggling with that in California
Because
as it relates to a lot of laws and
Of course,
legislation.
anti-Semitism is a fundamentally different cat than, for example, racism. It's basically a conspiracy theory about Jewish power in the world.
And it makes me sick to
No. That's the Jewish question. Anti-Semitism is just a blanket term for bigotry. That's not true. The Jewish question is a specific kind of anti-Semitism, but not all anti-Semitism is the Jewish question. There are many kinds of anti-Semitism that don't relate to the JQ. Anti-Semitism goes back thousands of years. The JQ goes back less than 100. Well, the JQ wasn't pulled out of whole cloth, right? There were conspiracies that fed into it, but like, you know, it's certainly not like a totally transposed, like one-to-one. Yeah. The idea, again, this is a very common like Zionist lie. The idea that anti-Semitism is super special. That's why Congress is always putting out like referendums on denouncing anti-Semitism, which they don't do for any other kind of bigotry. It's just another kind of bigotry, you know.
my stomach, and I say that
Of
clearly.
course.
And but not just of course. I mean, we've tried to lead in terms of our response, and we've called out and called balls and strikes in terms of the outrageous things that have happened.
So
and continue
I
to
would,
happen.
in my own framework of anti-Semitism, I think that saying overtly false things about the Jewish state is a form of anti-Semitism, but I don't think that is really important as much as it is it true or not? So Democrats have now been dragged into this conversation, some dragged, some run with, flags waving, into the conversation.
This notion of genocide.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Israel did not commit a genocide in Gaza. There's no standard by which Israel committed a genocide in Gaza. Just
Except for the UN's and like every country's on earth and everyone, literally everyone, and the average American person, including Republicans, literally like everyone under every standard. I don't need to engage. This is a lost cause. This is like a lost fight. Ben Shapiro lost this one. He lost it so fucking hard that people are leaving his org because they want the freedom to be able to be anti-Israel.
Actual level.
Just as a legal and factual level.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is
to which Gavin Newsom immediately agrees. Yeah. To which just no. Just like that. The beliefs of his constituents, irrelevant. Factual reality, irrelevant.
Your opinion of this?
My opinion is, I understand the tendency for people to make that, to assert that.
Why?
On the basis of the images and the proportionality.
Ugly shit doesn't mean genocide.
No. And by the way, I agree with you.
And international and
really? Oh, you do you?
And proportionality doesn't mean that if you kill my child and I then kill 7 criminals, that I've been disproportionate.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think but I understand that tendency on the basis of trying to reconcile the proportionate nature of how the war was ultimately.
Ben is fine with pushing back. Yeah, notice how Ben Shapiro is like, at the moment any disagreement crops up, he's totally okay with like, no, wait, no. Like instant disagreement. Gavin Newsom will not do it. Will not do it.
I have a question. Why do you feel the need to create a permission structure for that sort of stuff? I mean, meaning it's not true. Yeah. Why not just say it's not true?
Yeah, I don't know the definition, or I don't know the legal threshold. That's not my opinion, so I don't share that opinion as it relates to genocide. I do not agree with that notion.
He's even backing off of backing off. Like his way of trying to thread this needle was saying, well, I don't think it's a genocide, but I could see how people would think that based on the overwhelming evidence that it is. And Ben Shapiro's like, no, there actually isn't any evidence that it is. Why would you even think that? Fucking stupid anti-Semite. And Gavin Newsom's now saying, Okay, well, maybe some people just like think that way, you know?
That
Right,
that
but you do
was-
understand that if you accuse Israel of committing a genocide, that now puts Israel in the position of it should be a pariah state because states that commit
Yes. Oh my God, yes. Holy shit. It should be worse than a pariah state.
genocide should be pariah states.
Yeah.
So granting legitimacy to that position inherently.
I'm not granting
delegitimize-
legitimacy. I'm just saying the devastation in Gaza at the human level. You've got four
Of
kids.
course, it's terrible.
No, but I think it's also important to absorb that a little bit more. Just as it was sick, and we were clear in our condemnation, these people like me, as it relates to what Hamas did in that act of barbarism and terrorism.
Yeah, but there's
Oh, now we have the loaded language. Interesting. Barbarism, terrorism. It's all this whole conversation's passed by 2 hours of talking, and now suddenly we found an issue that Gavin Newsom's passionate on. Wonder who's paid him money recently. Do you still think it should be glass? What's that quote from The Incredibles? The law requires that I answer no. Why is he doing this with Ben? Because Gavin Newsom, like many centrist Democrats, is kind of stupid and has stupid advisors. He listens to consultants, okay? And the consultants are saying, you can maintain corporate control over America if you run as the based and red-pilled, like blue MAGA Republican who is a Democrat. After Trump blows up and all of the insane, like overtly incompetent people in the White House go their ways, you can be the guy to step in and take control. The problem is that these people, the people who are giving him this advice, are stupid and old, and they think that Ben Shapiro is relevant when he's not. In fact, this actually distances him from everyone. Nobody likes Ben Shapiro. The liberals don't, and most conservatives don't now too. Funnily enough, he's kind of a pariah within their own movement too. So it's a doomed effort, but unfortunately, Gavin Newsom is coming into 2028 with a lot of momentum, at least right now. I'm just saying, like, I'm not voting for him. I'm not voting for him. Like, it doesn't matter what he does. I'm sorry. There's no reason to trust him. Character is important. Trustworthiness is important. He could put on the best show in the world for the next 2.5 years. How do I know he's not going to drop it the nanosecond he gets voted into office? Like, at least Kamala, I swear, like, Kamala Harris is a duplicitous motherfucker, but she comes across as a lot more honest than Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is an insanely dishonest person. All the time, every day, no positions except what benefits him. Yeah, I'm not voting for him. So what do we do if Newsom's the candidate? Then it sucks. I don't know. I'm not voting for him. I'm sorry, what do you want? Like, you have to have standards. I know we've all enjoyed engaging in like the hyperbolic, test the consistency of your positions. 100% Hitler versus 99% Hitler. And yes, 99% Hitler is better than 100% Hitler. But in the real world, where there are like, consequences for normalizing the idea that the Democrats can get away with a candidate like this, it would probably be worse to have Governor Newsom as a candidate, as a president, I mean, than to just have another Republican. At least, like, if Gavin Newsom loses, we might be able to sell the message that people like him are unacceptable as presidential candidates. But if we accept him, then what do we get after him? Republicans. And what do we get during him? Republicans. No difference.
Crystal
Between
clear, that's a
deliberate
red line.
terrorism and wartime collateral damage, of course. And if we refuse to acknowledge that reality, then we end up equating
collateral
terrorist
damage.
groups with legitimate
I
government.
have stronger opinions. It wasn't just collateral.
Really, you think that Israel is targeting civilians?
It's like peering into a different time, like a different reality, man. Wow, really? You think Israel was targeting civilians? Delusional. What? It's crazy. It's just unimaginable. Like to still be here. Even I think the average Republican would not endorse this position at all anymore. By the way,
think some of the double tapping issues. I have a lot of issues with how Bibi ultimately conducted the war. I personally do, and I have a lot of issues that are also painted on the basis of the conversation I had with him a few weeks later after October 7th. The way he talked about the Palestinians, I kept talking about Hamas. He kept talking about the Palestinians. I kept coming back to Hamas, and then ultimately how the war was conducted. Not saying it was a genocide. I'm not, but I have issues.
What is the thing that
so conciliatory? So fucking weak, so conciliatory. On no pushback can be allowed, none whatsoever, because they serve the same masters, right? So like, why would he? So you're saying enduring 4 more years of Republicans in 2028 would be preferable to Newsom? Yes, I do believe that 100%. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, I think that's like a very defensible position for the same reason that it would have been better if Trump had won in 2020, because all we did by letting Biden win in 2020 was let Trump's goons cook for 4 years so that when they came back, they could bring fascism 2 to the front, rather than them just continuing a doomed, like, terminally unpopular presidency. You never would have had that big swing around with, like, young people and Latin voters. If Trump had won in 2020, he would have been, like, neutered the entire time. If Newsom wins in 2028, it is the end times, truly. Like, after that, it's just going to be Republicans. And by the way, under Newsom, it'll be Republicans too. You think the fact that Newsom is president will keep Republicans from being in charge? Are you watching this interview?
Said that you particularly
there was a dehumanization. I didn't like the way he talked about the Palestinian people. I just didn't.
What is the specific?
They can't govern. I didn't. The specific. I don't want to get into the details.
The reason I'm asking is because when you suggest that he is conflating Hamas and the Palestinians,
he wasn't conflating.
Of course, he does lead to the conclusion.
They were different. It wasn't. No. It was. I'm just saying the way he ultimately conducted it. I look back at that conversation. I reflect on rather that conversation. It doesn't surprise me, and I did not think it was proportionate.
Okay,
and I thought it was overwhelming, and the devastation and destruction breaks my heart.
Okay, so you're president of the United States. Somebody invades from Mexico. They take several thousand American citizens.
I get it. And by the way,
they hold them all the way until the end of the war. Until the end of the war, their hostages being held.
Don't get me wrong on any of this. I'm with you in terms of the ultimate accountability and bringing the hostages home. I like the clarity and conviction as it relates to getting all the hostages dead and alive home.
Holy fucking shit, dude. Jesus fucking Christ. Do you have any idea how unpopular this rhetoric is with with Democrats? I mean, like, even within Democrats, this like, oh no, man, like, I totally the enthusiasm for getting the hostages home.
And all of that, I'm not denying that.
And by the way, Hamas still has not been extirpated in the areas where Israel has left them alone.
And clearly this truce.
He's like tripping over himself to make sure that all that he, like, everyone knows he's the goodest boy, and all the masters that are watching this know that he's completely subservient to their agenda. Hey, military-industrial complex, just so you guys know, I might be a Democrat, but trust me, it's in name only. I will not stand against you in any way, shape, or form when it comes to your exercise of power. Your money, your military prowess, your surveillance tech, your contracts, all of them will not only be preserved, but expanded under me. Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you watching?
And détente is still a work in progress. There's been a lot of destruction.
Well, because Hamas was supposed to be disarmed, and they didn't.
Look, there's no. I'm crystal clear about Hamas.
But the point is that
crystal clear about Hamas.
Right, but the point is that I think,
and I'm also crystal clear in my love for Israel and my condemnation of Bibi.
It's actually beyond parody. I mean, this is what happens when you literally never interact with real people. The only people you interact with are consultants, lobbyists, money men, donors, whatever else. This is what you're like, yeah. The profession of love for Israel is an expression of fealty, that they're willing to bend the knee to, not to Israel necessarily, but to the interests that want to prop up Israel.
And there's a distinction. I condemn Donald Trump. I love my country. And I think that's
point out. Listen, anyone is free to disagree with Prime Minister Netanyahu anytime that they want. I will point out that,
but they're not anti-Semitic when they say.
Of course not.
But that's also important to say, because some people conflate that. You don't.
No, of course.
But others do.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro has never conflated criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, except for when he did earlier in this conversation, in the same chapter of the same video that we're watching right now, where he said that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. I've
critiqued Bibi myself, mainly for not being right-wing enough, in my opinion, on many issues domestically, actually. But when it comes to...
God bless you. I better not have to deal with you pro-Gavin Newsom people for the next 2.5 years, okay? This is beyond the fucking pale. This is beyond inexcusable. Like, you will genuinely be treated like Mossad agents and or bots. I do not believe any human being could internalize this and still come away thinking that Gavin Newsom is in any way, shape, or form a threat to the problems in this country.
Jesus. But when it comes to I mean, we can get into perceptions of Netanyahu's leadership and all this. I will say this. I know every major politician in Israel, I know many major politicians in Ukraine, in Hungary, in a wide variety of places. In Israel, I happen to know the last several prime ministers. If anyone outside of the state of Israel believes that Naftali Bennett or Yair Lapid, who's on the left,
Would not have been as forceful in their response?
That is nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts. It's not true.
No, fair point. And look, hey,
And the IDF, by the way, operates largely independently in some ways of the prime minister's office. It's kind of a
And Ben Shapiro, who is by far the smarter of these two men, is aware of the fact that Gavin Newsom is neutered and can't do or say anything contradictory. So he's just taking this opportunity to run a lap with all of his pro-Israel bullshit because he's not like dealing with Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or whatever. Like he spent the past 2 years dealing with the growing anti-Semitism on the right. So he's enjoying the fact that he now has a dog to play with, you know? Oh yeah, I have criticisms of Bibi too. He's not right-wing enough. Also, you think that a genocide's being committed by Israel? You want Israel to be a pariah state? That's anti-Semitic. But also I would never conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. Like he knows Gavin Newsom will just run around chasing his tail anyway, so who the fuck cares?
strange dual system that they have over there. I know too many soldiers who, I mean, I talk about one in the book who had 3 limbs blown off going door to door in Gaza.
I agree with Bosch, but I hate the privileged mentality of, well, he's going to suck anyway, so let a Republican win. What's happening now wouldn't have happened under Kamala. You're misunderstanding. I'm not saying that Gavin Newsom would do more harm in his immediate presidency than Trump or J.D. Vance would in 2028. What I'm saying is that the consequences of allowing Newsom to be the Democrat who runs, wins, and then presides over the downfall of this country will be worse than merely allowing an extremely unpopular Republican presidency to continue. For example, Biden was better in 2020 than Trump would have been. If Trump had won, America would have been worse between 2021 and 2025 than it was under Biden. But right now, America is much worse because Biden did something unforgivable. He did a bad job, and he didn't prosecute Trump. If he had done a good job, and he had prosecuted Trump, then we would be fine. But he wasn't that guy, and Newsom won't be either. Newsom will only give the right time to build a strategy of opposition. It's always easier to build popularity when you're not in power. Look at British government, you know? They've been playing hot potato with the, prime ministership for a decade now. What has it got them? Nothing. Whoever's in power is incredibly unpopular. Whoever isn't. Like that over here. If we're going to get a guy up there to change the course this country is on, and we are death spiraling right now, by the way, it needs to not be a guy who will say, yeah, I'm going to pull us up, and then cranks the wheel harder down.
Not using overwhelming air power to eviscerate millions of people.
How do we know general anti-Israel sentiment will keep going and not fizzle out? Being pro-Israel is not a default position that Americans return to if not exposed to anti-Israel propaganda. The opposite is the case. Americans are by default ambivalent on Israel unless exposed to contrary information. And right now, the overwhelming tide of information towards Israel is negative. You can just take a look at YouGov polling if you prefer, or Pew Research or whatever. People do not like Israel. Do you deny MAGA is an existential threat that could realistically damage America forever? Yeah, of course. You're crossing your fingers for a hypothetical election in 6 years? Wait, I'm not sure what you mean. Gavin Newsom winning the presidency in 2028 would be a continuation of that existential threat. It would be worse than the Republicans continuing that win. People need to believe there's a better option. What do you think it's going to do to the American electorate when they truly understand, that the Republicans and Democrats aren't offering anything different? Because they're not, right? Biden fundamentally did not change much from Trump's term. And Trump fundamentally, as ruinous as he is, what you pay attention to are the excesses, the underlying trends, the consolidation of power into the executive, the police state, funding for ICE. Look at all the Democrats right now who are saying that they would be willing to continue or even expand ICE funding. Do you really think these people are that different? They don't like Trump because he's rude and boorish, but they serve the same corporate masters. Look at Gavin Newsom right now. You really think this guy's different? Oh, I'm sure he'll be more rational. But the thing that's destroying America right now is not the irrationality of the president. It's underlying economic, social, and political trends that the Democrats are fully complicit in. They're just not as, loud about it as the Republicans are. But it's a real problem. We need real pushback. If you cement the idea that Democrats and Republicans represent the same thing, that's how you get uniparty rhetoric that led to Trump in the first place. Republicans flocked to Trump because they thought of Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or whatever as being just other Democrats, It was a consequence of the Tea Party rhetoric, the idea that they needed somebody who was fundamentally transformative, not just a guy who was like a Democrat light. So we need leftist populism to counter MAGA populism because their populism is addressing a real problem? No, I don't think I ever said MAGA populism is addressing a real problem. We do need lefty populism, though. Yeah, for sure, 100%. The experiment is over. America is done, okay? All of the trends that we've sort of built out towards, everything that we've enabled, everything that we've constructed, all of it, they have led us to here. And it's a bad place to be, and we're going down, all right? We need transformative change to get out of the death spiral that we're in, not just a slightly more competent fascist manager. I agree with your central premise, but Newsom wouldn't invade Greenland. Okay, who cares? Newsom runs in 2028, he wins, and then in 2032, the next Republican invades Greenland. Invading Greenland is not a Trump idiosyncrasy. It's a consequence of it's an expression of the dying empire, you know? Like, it's this, what is happening right now, like, Trump on his own is not, like, singly interested in Greenland. There are monetary interests involved in Greenland. There are billionaires who want to build that freedom city over there. There are mineral and oil interests that want to extract from there. All of those corporate masters, all of whom, by the way, would be supported and empowered by Gavin Newsom. Those are the people responsible. And those people aren't just individuals. They're expressions of a broader economic trend, you know? They're manifestations of material conditions. The material conditions have to change. If we get a Democrat in and those conditions don't change, they're just going to keep biding their time and waiting for the opportunity to do it again. I think Trump just wants Greenland because it seems cool and epic. Lesson number 2 with Trump that you all need to internalize. If Trump is doing something that seems erratic and stupid and totally driven by ego, it's not. It's because a billionaire recently spoke to him and convinced him that it would be cool and epic. Trump is very, very, very malleable. Somebody told him to do this. There is not a single thing that he has done in this administration that has not been at the behest of some other puppet master, all right? He is just a conduit for these interests. All of those interests will persist, as they did through Biden. Biden made contracts with Palantir, you know. Biden signed off on budgets that expanded ICE funding. Do you really think these people will save us?
I was in the hospital meeting victims on October 7th in Israel. So I you know, and been to memorials and
I want to be clear in the terminology we use about all this stuff, because right now, for example,
but the genocide issues.
Where are the members of the Democratic Party protesting and wearing pins for the protesters in Iran who are getting mowed down, maybe by the tens of thousands this week?
Well, I know where I am. I put out a pretty clear statement this week, and
I'd like to see more Democrats.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And by the way, I also thought it was the right thing to do, that strike, and I thought it was unbelievably effective and efficient. And
yeah, like, to that point. Ongoing. Senate Dems are reportedly offering ICE funding increases in exchange for body cams and de-escalation training for agents. Are these your saviors? These the people you think these people are going to get us out of here?
And had no problem saying that during the strike, didn't wait for the outcome. So yeah, I marched to a beat of a little bit of a different drum, a little bit more nuance here, but there is look, there's no, everything's so black and white. There's nuance here. I mean,
for sure, but I think
Jesus fucking Christ, he sounds like a Gamergator. He sounds like early YouTube liberal skeptic, you know, who's weirdly chummy with all the reactionary YouTubers and always is making like hit piece videos on the feminist YouTubers.
The point that I'm making, to get back to sort of where we originally departed here, was that, you know, I'm trying to call out what I see as bad behavior, untrue, immoral behavior on my own side. I'd like to see that more from a Democratic Party that seemed to be perfectly willing to wrap an arm around Zohran Mamdani the minute he got a little bit of momentum. Yeah. You know, the same man who had said that whenever the NYPD boot is on the throat of Americans, the IDF is lacing the boot.
That is true. The IDF is trained with the NYPD. Yes.
You know, that sort of nonsense is terrible.
Yeah, that was nonsense. That's true. That's not factually provably true.
No, I don't associate with those comments at all. I mean, and look,
now we found a comment he'll disavow, not, you know, gleeful endorsement of Netanyahu's war crimes, but this. Now we found something that he's willing to take a stand on. Finally, a presidential candidate with spine.
For me, should Mamdani be the mayor of New York?
That's up for people in New York to make that decision. That's not
Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
me to out here in California,
have an opinion.
thousands of miles away.
You have an opinion. You don't believe President Trump should be president. The American people decided he should.
Well, that directly impacts me. I mean, New York may indirectly, but I mean, it's a little bit of a different question. We'll see how he ultimately does. I thought he ran an incredibly effective campaign. I think there's a lot of interesting attributes that he has. Incredibly bright, incredibly capable. He's delivered some early.
There are a lot of terrible people who say bright and capable things.
No, I get it, but and I absolutely disagree with him on a lot of those comments. And I also maintained that posture pretty consistently over.
Not agreement, not a single expression of agreement with Mamdani on anything. Nothing. Only, oh, he's smart and interesting, and he ran a good campaign, which everyone knows and everybody agrees with. Wow, phenomenal stuff.
A long period of time. And no, I was not a Cuomo fan. So just for the record, and sorry.
As it turns out, there weren't a lot of Cuomo fans.
And I say this with respect. I mean, the Cuomo family is a good Democrat, his father, and there's some members of the family I like a lot. But look, these are tougher issues, and they are tough issues. And I appreciate your willingness to call balls and strikes. And a lot of folks, frankly, a lot of folks in your world, as we sort of castigate the right-wing media ecosystem, your willingness to call this stuff out. And
I think that in general, this is the way, if we want to have a way forward in American politics, just to get a little general, it has to be predicated on certain basic premises about truth. And that's why I keep saying, forget about, categorization. Is it true or is it not true?
What if, hypothetically, Newsom, you did a little dance for me? What if I said it was anti-Semitic for you not do a little dance for me? Newsom, you're not doing a little dance for me, which I'm interpreting as anti-Semitic. It's undeniably anti-Semitic. It's factually anti-Semitic. Imagine, if you would, a world in which you don't do a little dance for me, and I call you anti-Semitic, and that comes back to bite you. Well, do a little dance for me, Newsom. Newsom starts like tap dancing in front of him.
One of the major failings of the Democratic Party in the last election cycle is the unwillingness to say whether it was true or untrue that a boy could become a girl, for example. Yeah. I think a lot of people looked at that and they said,
oh, this should be good.
Excuse me? How is this? Forget about the political ramifications or the policy ramifications for just a second. Can you say a boy is not a girl? And boys cannot just become girls.
And we can go down. I mean, I feel like a year ago I was with Charlie having this conversation, which is remarkable. I'm curious. Did you? And this is not. I'm just honestly curious when I'm asking this. I'm not even. It's not. There's not a loaded question. Did you or others in the right condemn the Trump policies as it relates to gender affirming care for including reassignment surgeries in the federal prison system under the Trump administration's first term?
I mean, if I'd been aware of them, I would have condemned them. My company was the only company in America, I believe, that on a media level refused to use preferred pronouns for anyone. We use only biological pronouns since 2015, since we launched the company.
And I say that because it's just not well known, but the Trump administration's policies allowed for gender assignment, gender affirming care, but hormone treatment, being
I think that's
changed. Operations.
I mean,
it was federal policy.
Listen, I think that's wrong, and I wish that, frankly, you would go further. You've talked about the unfairness in sports, but to me, the bigger question is not unfairness in sports. The bigger question is whether we should be allowing the administration of chemical or surgical mutilation of minors based on gender dysphoria.
Well, the Trump administration has strong opinions. They've sued states like California, many other states.
Holy shit! It's like there's actually a gun to his head. I like watching this. I think I'm actually switching over in my position. I think Gavin Newsom would actually be more destructive than Trump or JD Vance in 2028. Like just on its own, without any of the larger consequences. He's more cucked to corporate interest than Trump could ever be. Trump at least has some kind of underlying personality, like some kind of dictate. Trump is honest in the sense that you kind of get a read on him, like what he wants and what he is. He's a pretty authentic person in that respect, at least, even if he says things that are untrue constantly. I like the vibe I'm getting from this, like his complete, like I at least respect, like Trump will push back on stuff, man. He won't push back on fucking anything. The corporations would just be able to do whatever they want through him. Like no holds barred. They just like any interest they had.
Plus states.
So, yes.
And my position is that's between the physician, it's between the family member, and these patients themselves.
Why? Now, are there any surgical or chemical interventions that you would oppose, even if the patient and doctor want?
Here we go. I mean, I know exactly where this debate goes.
Right, but I'm asking.
Here we go. It's Ben. It's like you want to, after 2 hours of talking, get one disagreement out of me.
It's a real question because it does have public policy implications. Meaning, in the state of California, there's a judicial ruling, we referenced it earlier, that said,
well, that judicial ruling was ridiculous on this basis. Any teacher, and what you're talking about is a law that I signed, as it relates to this idea that
school districts
you can
ontologically evil fascist better than a status quo weasel. Kaysen, I'm trying to explain this to you because you're affected right now by a disease known as liberalism. You think the problem with Trump is that he himself is stupid and violent and destructive. In reality, Trump's stupid, violent tendencies probably are make him better than what Gavin Newsom would be in his position. As presidents, or a potential president in Gavin's case, both of them are conduits for corporate interests. It used to be, back in the good old days, that corporations were just one seat at the table. The president would sit down with them and labor organizers in the case of a dispute, or the people, and so on and so forth, and they would have to make considered decisions about what it is they wanted to do exactly. Now, the corporations have always had an undue say in things, but it has never been like it is now. Right now, for people like Donald Trump, he just spends all of his time, day in, day out, talking to and being congratulated by corporate envoys, nonstop. He is nonstop surrounded by lobbyists, formal and informal. They can buy pardons off of him. They can get him to give them special permissions for the company with regard to trade or tariff exemptions. They can do anything. I don't see any reason, based on this interview, that Governor Newsom wouldn't be just as bad. You think that with Trump, the problem is that he's dumb or whatever. That's not the problem, man. There are tons of dumb people. The willingness to be used as a corporate stooge is the problem. That's what's causing the problem. Trump is not the great evil in this country. It's capitalism. I'm sorry, it is. I know it's old hat, but it is. Every day we wake up and we're bombarded with more and more new headlines of some horrendously evil shit that is taking place because the oligarchs that run this country demand it. If anything, Governor Newsom would probably do a more competent job of administrating their orders, which is bad. Like, if our country is going to be ruled by oligarchs, I would rather their orders be administrated incorrectly. Look at ICE right now. I guarantee you that if we had a competent secretary for the Department of Homeland Security, they would be able to get much more done. Thank God above, thank Jesus Christ Almighty that Kristi Noem is a fucking retard, and so is everyone working around her, because that really stops them from doing more damage than they might otherwise do, you know? I do not want the lesson from the Trump administration to be that the oligarchs need to find a more competent stooge.
And teachers
that you can fire someone for not telling on a child and saying that they're talking about being gay, not just trans issues, any LGBTQ issues, that you can be fired. There's nothing in the law. The law that I signed does not preclude these teachers from telling the parents.
No, it precludes school districts from
mandating and firing someone for not. But it allows the teacher to make that judgment on the basis of seeing someone that's being bullied and the requirements they have under the law to keep people safe.
As a parent, don't you believe that a teacher should facilitate the passage of information to you? Why would that?
On every basis. I mean, that they should somehow just be listening.
The teacher is going to call you. I mean, if my kid decides to come out as trans
it's about
at school,
safety. The law is pretty clear, and and the teachers have that ability. And the teachers maintain that ability. We didn't deny that. We didn't say to the teachers, you cannot.
No.
Quite the contrary. This is critical because there's been a lot of misinformation about this.
I'm not misinterpreting the law. I mean, what the law did is it prohibited school districts. You shouldn't fire
someone. And in many cases, look, anyone that's members of the LGBTQ community, how many stories that you've heard of people that say, I went to my parents with my teacher. That was a safe place for me in school. There's a lot of grace in this space. There's a lot of testimony in this space that I think should just provide a little bit of grace and humility. It's not a black and white issue. Teachers can still, quote unquote, turn in a child. They just can't be fired.
I mean, but my question on that, and again, this is a subset of a broader issue, is why does the parent not have an absolute moral?
Can Gavin even debate? Sure. If you got him to talk to a leftist who criticized Israel, I guarantee you'd see all the debate skill that you have not seen in this interview come up. Seriously, it's night and day, man. They're all bought and paid for. Guarantee you 100%.
Ability to receive that information, and requires, they're not a requirement, There should be a requirement for teachers to turn over that information.
Health and safety is a requirement.
If a teacher truly believes that a parent is a threat to a child, they can report it to child services.
Yeah, so health and safety is still the standard. So you maintain that standard. That standard is the law.
That's a lot of wiggle room for a teacher to apply.
Well, it's also, but it's a lot of law in terms of the weight of that law and that responsibility to take care of it, make sure your kids are safe. But this idea that Trump says people are going to public schools and coming back, having surgeries and coming back the next day is absurd.
No, but there are certainly cases in which kids are being quote unquote socially transitioned at school without parents knowing about it. I know some of the parents to whom this has happened. I mean, this is the fundamental question that lies at the root of all of this is the question that you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls.
Yeah, I think for the grace of God. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the sympathy. I also feel terrible for anybody who's suffering with any sort of.
I mean, I think it's been the case for generations, for time immemorial. God bless. I don't know how.
Why is this a hard one? I just don't understand.
Because I don't know why it's such a. Why is it such a? I'm curious. I understand the political potency.
Why are you bringing up stuff we disagree on when you know perfectly well that I'm not allowed to disagree with you? What the fuck, Ben?
Of it.
It's not just politically potent,
but it's just how. It's so few. We're talking about so few people.
It's not about
that are struggling with gender identity issues. A lot
struggling with. But he speaks indistinguishably from how Republicans did about trans people back a decade ago. Now they're all openly genocidal, but back then, I have so much sympathy for people who are struggling with X or Y. Same shit. You hear it from the TERFs too.
Of remarkable people, a lot of wildly successful people, and they've gone on their life, have incredible lives. I don't know. There's so much hate and bigotry, so much condemnation, much judgment.
This is the part where I start to object.
Yeah.
Okay. The idea that
you may not be spewing it.
No.
Like some others. Trust me.
But
this is the business they're in.
You may not be spewing it. Holy shit, dude. Ben, I know you're not known for transphobia, but it's out there. If he doesn't consider what Ben says to be transphobia, then, there you fucking go. If you, Jesus Christ. Once again, man, my big criticism of liberals, time and time again, it's that they're not even liberal. Gavin Newsom is not liberal. He's agreeing with everything a fascist says, man. There
are lots of terrible people who say lots of terrible things, but
yes.
It is not an act of bigotry to say that a boy cannot become a girl, nor should my children be taught in K through 12 public schools that a boy can become a girl.
Yeah.
That is not an act of bigotry. Yeah. That's an act of rationality and biological simplicity.
I respect your point of view. And,
but does the state?
I don't.
Good people disagree on this.
I know, but
in a lot of states, not just California.
Do you trust this guy to administrate over the federal government? Do you trust this guy to administrate even over the state government? This guy?
Well-established rules, by the way, that predate me. Again, this is not where I started.
That predate me. Hey, I'm not responsible. When I'm running for president and I'm trying to get Republican donors to support me, just remember, I'm not the one who supported those progressive laws in the state of California.
And advocating on these issues, as some suggest, and look, I'm with the Governor Spencer Cox, who said about many of these issues.
Let's not go that far. Newsom's not fascist over social issues. He is literally right now in this interview, in this frame of the interview, agreeing with a fascist on social issues.
So much attention been placed on so few people.
And the problem is, I do think that on an electoral level, to go to the politics, it is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. When
I agree with that.
When you say boy can become a girl, and then just on a realistic.
And by the way, I respect if that's your barrier to then listening to people on a myriad of other issues. So be it. It is what it is.
I just find it strange that even if you wish to have a public policy that pursues something different, we cannot just admit that boys and girls are two different things, and that a boy cannot become a girl. Why is this so difficult?
Yeah, I understand your point of view.
But just what a man. Truly the attack dog of the Dems, huh? Really the one guy with a spine. The one guy with a battle plan to fight against Republicans. Phenomenal stuff. Well and truly. You can really see. Listen, he might not be the wokest, but damned if he doesn't hate Republicans with every fiber of his being. Or so I've been told by Twitter liberals, Just any moment now, all of that seething ferocity is going to come to fruition. You're going to see it bubble up to the surface, and he's going to go absolutely sicko mode. You know, we've got 12 whole minutes left of the podcast. He's been really, really docile so far, but any moment now we'll see that famed Newsom energy.
And, you know, and I also respect Caitlyn Jenner. You know, I do. And
I respect.
Oh, okay. He thought of one trans person to support. Just one. He thought of one. Quick, think of a trans person.
For individuals.
Well, no,
I mean, I can tell you a story.
Yeah.
This is there's
no,
a
I mean, I just
situation in
and
which
by the way, and
I was speaking at University
and
of
this
British
is a harder
Columbia.
thing for me too. As you may know, and you probably do. I have a trans godson, and it's there's a little more. I find the humanity. I find different aspects of this, different layers.
This goes back to my sort of truth.
But I know you're facts over empathy.
Well, I mean, I'll give you. Here's the story. So I was speaking at University.
Just a complete concession to the idea that the only reason you would ever believe in trans people is if you're willing to disregard the facts. It's again like his positions on this explicitly are reactionary. Not just reactionary, but like there are Republican states that are less reactionary than the stuff that he's signing off on here.
University of British Columbia. This must have been now 5 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And a person who identified as trans got up at the microphone. And obviously I do a lot of these things on campus. I used to do more of them. And this issue came up. The person started talking about...
Hold on. Agreeing with a fascist on social issues doesn't make you a fascist. The fascist nature of MAGA is their erosion of the mechanics of democracy itself, separations of power and rules of law, not just social conservatism. No? That's the difference between the implementation of a fascist government and a person's fascist political opinions. Also, you can have fascists in power who have not yet successfully unwound the constitutional fabric. Also, you can be fascist and follow the law. Ugh, you've been arguing with me the whole damn thing. Just take 7 days. Punished for being a liberal. If you want to disagree, that's fine. But like on this issue, you have lost. I'm sorry. You have failed to come up with anything that effectively parries my words. What you're seeing right now is the Dark Souls "You Died" screen. Like you're like still hitting buttons on the controller after the massive two-handed Mace Slam came down. You failed to like your roll timing was all off.
His family's biological male. Again, you can use whatever pronouns you choose to use. It's a free country, but you can't force me to use pronouns that I believe are grammatically incorrect.
By the way, I'm not sitting here, trying to browbeat you on pronouns.
I'm just putting that.
Oh my fucking god, dude. Hey, I'm sorry if I've come off too aggressive in this, by the way. I'm sorry. Like I know. I've been coming at you with this stuff. I'm not trying to browbeat you. Oh my god. If it's him versus JD, I'm canvassing for JD. I'm only half joking. I'm like 30% joking. Maybe these are his consultants.
Are you ready for a Vance presidency? Because that's exactly what we'll end up with if we nominate a far-left Mamdani-like candidate in 2028. The November elections proved what we've been arguing for months. The Democratic Party has to choose which project is more important, turning blue places bluer or turning red and purple places to blue. We know that focusing on the latter is the only way to defeat Trump and far-right extremism. History has shown that a moderate approach is the way Democrats win. Hear me out. Since 1980, Democrats have only won the White House once without winning a supermajority of moderate voters nationwide. So what does that actually mean for us? Mamdani won just 36% of the moderate vote. Take that and extrapolate it nationwide, and the results...
Sorry, Third Way is a think tank formed in 2005. That's basically, like, their position has just been the Democrats need to be Ronald Reagan, basically. It's like we can never ever be progressive. Obviously all of their money comes from like oligarchs and big corpos, basically no like on the ground work or anything. They have a bunch of GOP donors and stuff like that. I bet you these guys will support the fuck out of Gavin Newsom though. Their criticism section on their Wikipedia page is longer than any other, like everything else combined. I think our version of this is more perfect union. There is nothing on the genuine left that comes even remotely close to what centrist Democrats have at their disposal or are willing to do. They are evil. They are all spiritually Israeli, which means that they're evil and demonic. I mean, they are all pro-Israel, so, it's not really like an exaggeration, I guess. I'm so mad. Look at who they're supporting for speaker. Jeffries? Yeah, of course. Obviously. Yeah. Final point. Remember how recently Ro Khanna earned some respect from me specifically by saying that he wants to implement a wealth tax in the state of California, shear off some of those billions? Gavin Newsom stepped in and said, no, I'd veto it. Gavin Newsom's big dilemma, tax the rich or defy the left. Isn't it more like tax the rich or run out of money? What do you mean defy the left? Like, yeah, tax the rich or go bankrupt. I don't know. What do you mean? You need money. You don't tax people for fun. Why do we need to worry about him if the electorate will obviously not vote for him? He's literally right now one of the most popular people for Democrats for the presidential race in 2028. Probably not for long. We'll see. Now that's a guest I didn't expect. Why? Why not? Gavin's on-camera persona is the complete opposite of a social media post. I don't know who came here to watch Gavin's School Shapiro or watch Shapiro's School Gavin, but say what you will about either of these guys. People sitting down right now and having a respectable conversation is exactly what we need right now. Definitely not a positive sign if the comments under this video are reflecting the energy of like fucking Dave Rubin circa 2016, you know? Like, and we're talking about someone who could potentially be the Democratic presidential candidate. Ben Shapiro's fans came to his comments? Yeah, probably. Because when Gavin Newsom put out his episodes with Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, they were overwhelmingly negative. Well, I'm mad. I'm angry. How about you guys? Looking forward to canvassing for J.D. Vance, I guess. That'll be interesting. That'll be novel. Hopefully we can get PV on board with that.